From day one, we've been taught to listen to others and obey them. Do your job, they say. Serve your country. Be there for family. Work hard to please your boss. Follow a certain political party or even an idea. Pretty much serve anyone but ourselves. There is absolutely no harm in serving others, okay? However, it can get to the point of losing sight of personal values and sense of self. So when this happens, I start to feel my energy being sucked into some societal structure that I'm about to get myself trapped into. These societal structures are referred to as pendulums, which are forces that unite people's thoughts and actions. Today, I will explain how pendulums work, why they pose as a threat to me, and how I protect myself against a destructive one. In the book Reality Transurfing, pendulums are defined as energy structures that are formed by groups of people thinking alike. So they manifest in this physical world as organizations with shared goals and resources, like companies, religious groups, sports teams, and such. These groups have their own shared resources and goals, like buildings, equipment, and technologies, and they help reinforce the identity of the group. So anything that threatens the group or its goals could stir up some interpersonal troubles. Let's use a personal example. This year, I landed a 9-to-5 job where the work expectations and culture eventually became an absolute mismatch to my identity. Consequently, this drained me and it felt like I was constantly functioning on low energy. So, I started prioritizing my own energy by refusing to work in the office as much and only doing work that was interesting to me. These actions, of course, threatened the workplace culture, so then the company, aka the pendulum, eventually caught on to this and threw me out. Pendulums have the power to recruit more people and eliminate those who value their own energy more than the company's goals. Imagine trying to push a car. When a group pushes together at the same time, they create maximum force. A way for a car to gain momentum is when you get more people to push it. This is similar to how a pendulum works in physics. Okay? Speaking of physics, let's talk about a concept called resonant frequency. When you're at a playground, have you ever noticed how a swing goes higher when you push it at the right moment? That's resonant frequency. It's the perfect rhythm for pushing or shaking an object to make it move as much as possible. Think of it as matching an object's natural back and forth motion, which can create the biggest effect with the least amount of effort. Every pendulum has its own resonant frequency. When it loses followers, it weakens the force of the swing. In our swing set example, each person pushing the swing represents a follower. The more people pushing in sync, the swing gets higher and higher. But if people start walking away one by one, the swinging becomes less powerful. This is how a social pendulum loses power, when its support base starts to gradually erode. Other examples include strict religious groups, political parties, and even fashion trends. In nature, groups of animals often move together, like schools of fish or a flock of birds. These groups can act like living pendulums, swinging back and forth as one. They follow their own rules, almost like they're a single creature. Sometimes, animals in these groups follow the crowd's movement without realizing it, instead of deciding on their own where to go. Every member of the pendulum must either conform or be rejected. So in the corporate world, if I refuse to do things their way, I will eventually get eliminated. Hence me recently being fired from my previous 9-to-5. There were times where I've created pendulums myself, and many times where I got caught in a pendulum as a follower. Because of this, I've eventually realized that paving my own path brought me so much more fulfillment while still striving to respect other people's individual paths. Any pendulum by its nature can be inherently destructive if it prioritizes its own survival over the individual follower's well-being. A destructive pendulum would drain energy without any regard for individual growth, demand those to conform, and punishing those who don't, creating a sense of dependency and fear in followers. Resist any change that threatens them, and they may even cause harm to its members. These pendulums force followers to either conform or be chewed up and spit out. A big problem with destructive pendulums is that it feeds on the energy of its followers while being on the lookout to destroy other groups in order to win over potential followers from them. War is the most extreme example of the battle between pendulums. Breaking free from a pendulum is difficult because you might have to suffer some losses. But if you're lucky, you might find your place within the system and feel at home there. However, if you're not lucky and you find yourself in a mismatched pendulum, you may experience a soulless or sad existence. I've seen individuals who are loyal and stand with a company's mission and work themselves to the bone, feeling right at home in that pendulum because it's what provides them that sense of stability through stable paychecks, promotions, a raise, friends, status, and whatnot. And then there are individuals who find themselves in a mismatched pendulum, like my previous self, who lived a very soulless life from molding into a 9-to-5 corporate culture. Anyone who falls under a pendulum can lose their freedom, being forced to live by imposed laws and rules. Luckily, not all pendulums are destructive, okay? As long as I'm self-aware, I can recognize destructive pendulums and other pendulums that have constructive features as well, such as caring about both the team and each person, helping people grow and giving them what they need, letting everyone speak up and share different ideas, encouraging independence. If you find yourself in this pendulum, consider yourself absolutely freaking lucky. A pendulum can also exhibit both constructive and destructive traits, depending on the situation and leadership. Okay? The key difference I see here is how the pendulum treats its followers. Does it treat followers as A, resources to be exploited, or B, does it treat them as valuable contributors that deserve to be nurtured? Recognizing these traits has been helpful when I make decisions about various pendulums in my life. I caution that being involved in a pendulum, whether it's destructive or constructive, can still pose a risk of destruction to individuality. So, to truly protect myself from a pendulum, I create a bubble of nothingness. If I am empty, there is nothing for the pendulum to hook onto. Basically, I am detaching myself from the pendulum to conserve my own energy. So a pendulum cannot push my buttons or upset me if I have an empty relationship to it. So in my previous job, I became more secluded. I didn't put in any effort to socialize, even though I'm pretty extroverted. And then I lost the drive to perform because I have to perform for the sake of pleasing someone else. The pendulum obviously eventually caught on to this and threw me out. I did cry though, like a lot. But now I can invest more on this YouTube channel. How do I effectively stop a pendulum when it happens, but to do so without shit hitting the fan? To stop a pendulum when it happens can be hard, especially if you have people-pleasing tendencies like me. But from what I've learned in reality transurfing and my own experiences, it is absolutely possible.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
Here's how I do it. First, I try to identify what the problematic pendulum truly needs. This could be a person. What could they need from me? Do they just need a confidence boost? Some kind of solution to their problem? Or simply just a peace of mind? And then I start visualizing the person fulfilling that need. So what I do is I create pictures in my head of them being happy and content. This puts me out of a defensive mode when I no longer perceive them as a threat. Finally, I distract myself from the immediate problem to avoid locking into a negative frequency with them. This technique gives the pendulum a small amount of positive energy, diffusing any potential aggression. What I'm doing here is I'm gently bringing the pendulum to rest by addressing its underlying needs rather than engaging in conflict. This creates power. An example of this is Aikido. God, I love Aikido. Aikido is a Japanese martial art that focuses on redirecting an opponent's energy to neutralize attacks without causing harm. Unlike direct confrontation, this approach does not feed energy to the pendulum, okay? It works by indirectly restoring the pendulum's balance, therefore improving relationships. Consistently training this muscle has strengthened my ability to handle difficult interpersonal situations. It does take energy though, so sometimes it won't be 100% successful depending on the situation. But just remember, it's a muscle that can be trained over time. I want to end on that being completely free of pendulums doesn't always have to be the case, okay? At the end of the day, Turning dreams into reality is the journey, right? So, that's all I've got for today. If you're still here, let's take a deep breath together. And always remember the magic within you. Till next time.